Our Lenten pilgrimage this week takes place in the heart of the old city of Jerusalem at the beginning of the Via Dolorosa. Christian tradition places two moments of Jesus' passion here, the scourging and the condemnation to death. The two shrines commemorating these events are attached to the Franciscan monastery, home to the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum.
Chi attraversa la Via Dolorosa non può non incontrarsi.
Those who cross the Via Dolorosa cannot fail to encounter, whether they like it or not, a fairly obvious complex opposite the government school, a primary school. Opposite to the north is the complex of the Flagellation. The Church of the Flagellation is of medieval origin, like the whole tradition that fixes here the central moments of Jesus' passion. He was at Gethsemane to pray. There he was arrested, and then he was taken to what must have been the Antonia fortress. This was located here because at the end of the 19th century an ancient Roman floor was found, dating from after Jesus' time, which was given the name Lysostrotos, meaning stone-paved floor. The courtyard where Jesus' trial would have taken place.
In pietra il cortile dove sarebbe avvenuto il processo di Gesù.
The Church of the Flagellation was originally built by the Crusaders in the 12th century and later abandoned. In 1838, it was bought by the Franciscans and reopened. Architect Barluzzi restored it in 1929 in typical medieval style, retaining the original wall to tie it with ancient tradition. Ciambellotti's stained glass windows depict Pilate's judgment, the scourging of Jesus and the liberation of Barabbas. On the dome of the chapel there is a representation of the crown of thorns.
Lo stesso va detto per la cappella della condanna.
In the chapel of Condemnation we find not only the floor from Roman times, although later than the time of Jesus, but also a part of the building has been preserved. At the end of the 19th century, all the ruins and superstructures were removed and the Franciscans built the small sanctuary of the Condemnation in 1904. The sanctuary of the Condemnation was rebuilt in 1904 by Brother Wendelin Hinderkuser on the ruins of a medieval church. The title of the old church is not known. The new one receives its name from the large slab pavement that continues under the nearby sanctuary of Ecce Homo. This was a part of the Lithostrotus, where Pilate established his seat for the judgment of Jesus and from which Jesus emerged carrying the cross. Not only have they preserved ancient memories, but they have also placed memories that came later, that were conceived by piety, by Christian devotion. Thus, in the chapel of Condemnation, we have a classic representation of the Ecce Homo, Jesus crowned with thorns and presented to the crowd, Jesus in two beautiful wooden statues, taking up the cross and carrying it on his shoulders. Inside the small chapel there is also another representation. It was made by the Cartonai Sacquegna, a famous family from the late 1800s. Conceived from Christian mysticism, it depicts John, the evangelist, the Lord's beloved disciple, and Mary of Magdala lifting a veil to somehow prevent Our Lady from seeing the body of the scourged and wounded Jesus. This is a scene conceived by the Christian spiritual tradition. We find it in a famous office of Our Lady, attributed to Saint Bonaventure. These are two memories linked to the Passion of Jesus that are very dear to pilgrims, who start here their way of the cross. Opposite the entrance there is also the Multimedia Museum, which introduces the Via Dolorosa, the Way of the Cross, and the museum containing the archaeological collections of the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum. The SBF is a scientific institution for the research and academic teaching of sacred scripture and the archaeology of biblical countries. It was created by the Franciscan Custody of the Holy Land in 1901 and has been operating continuously since 1924. A valuable group of archaeologists to whom we will devote a special program at various times organized numerous excavation campaigns and rediscovered the most important sanctuaries of the Holy Land. In the scientific proposal of the SBF, science and faith meet each other.
Per così dire, mostrare che la fede non ha paura della scienza.
To show that faith is not afraid of science. They are different orders of thought and reflection, but not opposed to each other. The one who gave man intelligence is the one who offers him to believe. We are not watertight compartments. Reason and faith do not smear each other, but are two ways of looking at reality. The reality that surpasses us all, the divine reality, but also the human reality. It is faith that leads us to remember the passion, death and resurrection of Jesus in the places where they happened. In the fourth week of Lent, the Custody's pilgrimage reached the Church of the Flagellation, where the Holy Mass was presided over by Brother Alessandro Coniglio, secretary of the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum. The homily was given by Father Łukasz Popko, a Dominican who has accompanied the Lenten pilgrimages. The following week, the fifth week of Lent, the focus shifted just a few meters further away. This time the celebration took place inside the Chapel of Condemnation. It was presided over by Brother Gregor Geiger, concelebrated by Enrique Bermejo, superior of the convent, together with the brothers of the custody and local priests and religious. The homily was led by Brother Frederick Mans. Two episodes very close to each other within the story of the Passion of Jesus, a few days before the beginning of Holy Week.